There is a pain you carry that doesn't scream, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't beg. It just stays. Quiet, persistent, heavy. It doesn't show up when you're crying. It shows up in moments of silence, when everything is fine, but something inside you feels missing. It's not sadness, not anxiety, not even fear. It's an ache of someone who has slowly disappeared from themselves. You don't even know when it started. Maybe it was the first time you said yes when you meant no. The first time you stayed quiet to avoid conflict. The first time you made yourself smaller just to be accepted. And now you're exhausted, not because of how much you do, but because of how much of you is gone in everything you do. You function, you show up, you survive. But surviving is not the same as living, and deep down, you know this. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." But how can you communicate what you don't even let yourself feel? You've become fluent in emotional omission, polite in your pain, invisible in your own life. And the world calls you strong. But strength without authenticity is just a well-decorated cage. You're not tired from doing too much. You're tired from never being fully there for yourself. This pain you feel, it's not weakness. It's the echo of all the times you've left yourself behind. All the versions of you that stayed quiet, stayed small, hoping someone would notice the absence. But no one does, because you've hidden it well, even from yourself. So now the silence inside you is getting louder, and you can't ignore it anymore. That ache you carry, it has a name. It's you, the part of you that's been waiting to return. There was a time when you were whole, unfiltered, instinctive, alive. You laughed too loud, cried too easily, asked for too much, and for a moment that was allowed. Until it wasn't. Until someone flinched at your anger, dismissed your pain, mocked your dreams, told you to grow up, be quiet, get over it. And now, you did what every child does when love feels conditional. You adapted. You trimmed your edges, muted your colors, learned which parts of you were acceptable and which ones had to be hidden to survive. That's where the fracture began. Not with trauma, but with strategy. You didn't become someone else by accident. You became who you needed to be to feel safe. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to fit in. But the more you wear it, the more it becomes fused to your skin. And soon, you forget there was ever a face beneath it. You became agreeable, reliable, easy to love, but only because you buried the parts of you that might be rejected. Your anger, your wildness, your boundaries, your voice. And now, those parts live in the dark, still breathing, still waiting, still shaping your life from behind the scenes. Because what you silence doesn't disappear. It festers. It turns into resentment, into overthinking, into that strange feeling of being surrounded by people, but still feeling unseen. You've been called kind, selfless, mature. But deep down, you know you're not being loved. You're being managed. Because how can someone love the real you if you never let them see it? And how can you feel love if you know it's directed at a version of you that's only half true? You've been applauded for your silence, but silence, when born from fear, is not wisdom. It's erasure. So much of your suffering isn't because others failed to love you. It's because you taught them how to love a mask. The real you? It's still in there, buried beneath years of social performance and emotional compression. And it's not angry with you. It's not bitter. It's just waiting, patiently, for a moment of courage, a crack in the mask, a whisper from the soul that says, enough. So ask yourself now, not gently but urgently, what part of you did you silence just to survive? Because the path back to yourself doesn't begin with healing. It begins with remembering. You didn't mean to become this version of yourself, the quiet one, the accommodating one, the one who always knows what to say or what not to say. But slowly, over years of small choices and quiet sacrifices, the mask became the face. Not by force, by repetition. You smiled when you were angry, apologized when you were the one bleeding, laughed just enough to keep the room light, disappeared just enough to keep them comfortable. And they called you easy to be around, low maintenance, good energy. But they weren't praising you. They were praising your absence. Because what they loved was not your truth. It was your silence. And you knew that. You felt it every time you swallowed a truth that burned your throat. Every time you nodded, smiled, accommodated. Not because you agreed, but because you were afraid of what would happen if you didn't. That's not connection. That's performance. And performances always cost more than they appear. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But before acceptance, you must be willing to reveal yourself, fully, unedited. And that terrifies you. Because the truth is, you believe that if you stop being agreeable, you'll be abandoned. If you stop being useful, you'll be replaced. If you speak your truth, you'll become too much. So you keep disappearing, in doses, and no one notices, because you've made it look gracefully. But inside, you're starving, not for food, not even for love, for recognition. To be seen, truly seen, beyond your function. To be met without having to edit yourself into palatability. And here's the cruel twist. The more you disappear for others, the more you start to believe you were never meant to be seen in the first place. That's not humility. That's self-erasure. You've confused being needed with being valued. But people can need you and still not know you. People can love what you provide while being blind to your pain. You became a mirror, reflecting back whatever others needed to feel whole. But who reflects you? Who asks what you need when you've spent years pretending not to? This is not strength. This is survival. And you're tired, not from life, but from constantly vanishing inside it. So here's the invitation. Not to scream, not to fight, but to stop pretending. Let the mask slip. Let the voice shake. Let the version of you that only existed to be accepted start to fall away. Because the ones who love your silence will leave when they hear your voice. But the ones who stay, they'll be the ones who were waiting for the real you all along. You wonder why people overlook you, why they take you for granted, why they forget your needs, your presence, your depth, but always remember your availability. It's not malice, it's not cruelty, it's a mirror. The world reflects the truth you carry silently, that you don't believe your presence matters. You've treated your own needs like they're negotiable. You've spoken softly, not because it's your nature, but because you feared your volume would push people away. You've tolerated less so others could have more. You've dimmed your light so they wouldn't feel small. And the world adjusted. Because people don't respond to who you are, they respond to who you are allowed to be. You taught them, I won't take up space, I'll be okay, you don't have to ask. And they listened. They believed you, even if it was a lie you told yourself. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this cycle of emotional invisibility feels like fate. But it's not. It's just unspoken permission. When you abandon yourself in subtle ways, the world abandons you in obvious ones. When you disappear internally, you become easy to overlook externally. And then comes the wound. You begin to believe that love is something you must earn through service, silence, and self-sacrifice. But let's be clear, if love only arrives when you disappear, that's not love. That's conditioning. You're not being neglected because you're unlovable. You're being neglected because you trained people to believe you didn't need to be held, heard, fought for. The tragic part? Even you started believing it. You stopped checking in with yourself, stopped asking what you feel, what you want, what you deserve. And so, the world did the same. Because the world is not your enemy, it's your reflection. When you stop showing up for yourself, life stops showing up for you. So ask yourself now, not hypothetically, but honestly, in what ways have I taught the world to ignore me? And then ask, what would happen if I taught it something different? Because reclaiming yourself isn't about being louder, it's about being true. Even if that truth disrupts, even if it disappoints, even if it means some people leave. Let them. Better to lose what only loved your silence than keep what could never hold your voice. Not all rebellions are loud. Some begin in silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence that comes just before a storm. It starts like this. You stop explaining yourself. You stop over-apologizing. You stop smiling when it hurts. You stop pretending to be okay with things that, slowly, methodically, have been killing you. Not with rage, not with drama, just with stillness. Because one day, you wake up and realize the cost of being agreeable has been your own disappearance. And suddenly, that cost feels unacceptable. So you begin the quiet rebellion. You don't text back immediately. You say no without wrapping it in 10 layers of justification. You speak and don't shrink after. You let people misunderstand you, and you don't rush to fix it. At first, it feels like death. The death of the mask, the death of the persona you built so carefully just to survive this world. But underneath the discomfort, there's something else, something ancient, something wild. You. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to become that person, you have to betray every version of you that existed solely to be loved. This is not self-improvement. This is self-returning, self-remembrance, self-resurrection. It will scare people. They will accuse you of changing. They will feel betrayed by your boundaries. They will say you've become distant, cold, selfish. Let them speak. Let them leave. Because the only betrayal more dangerous than disappointing others is betraying yourself just to keep the illusion of connection alive. This rebellion is not loud, but it's absolute. It doesn't scream in protest, it whispers in truth. And every time you choose presence over performance, truth over comfort, authenticity over approval, you are reclaiming pieces of yourself that you didn't even know were missing. This is the chapter of your life where you stop asking for permission to exist as you are, where you stop bleeding to make others feel whole, where you stop making sense to people who never made space for your depth. It's not about becoming hard, it's about becoming real. The kind of real that doesn't flinch when someone disapproves. The kind of real that doesn't vanish just to be chosen. You don't need to become louder. You just need to stop disappearing. Because the quietest rebellions are often the most radical. You, finally refusing to abandon yourself no matter who walks away. You've spent years running from a part of yourself you don't even fully understand. But it's always there, in the background, in your reactions, in your tension, in the quiet places where your self-control cracks. The part that gets angry too quickly, the part that envies, desires, resents, the part that doesn't care about being good, that doesn't want to be soft or kind or chosen. You were taught to hide it, to shame it, to bury it beneath reason and restraint. And you did. So well, in fact, that now you fear it like a stranger. But Carl Jung gave it a name, the shadow. Everything you repress lives there, not because it's evil, but because it was unacceptable. And here's the truth. Your shadow holds more than darkness. It holds your fire, your instincts, your truth before it was edited. You don't need to destroy the shadow. You need to face it, understand it, invite it into the light. Not to let it rule you, but so it stops ruling you from behind the scenes. Because what you reject doesn't go away. It leaks, it sabotages, it becomes anxiety. It becomes people-pleasing. It becomes the quiet resentment that poisons your peace. Integration doesn't mean acting out every impulse. It means not lying to yourself about what you feel. It means holding the rage without exploding, naming the jealousy without becoming bitter, acknowledging the selfish desire without shame. Because in your shadow is also your clarity, your sharpness, your boundaries, your ability to say, this is where I end. This is what I won't tolerate. This is who I truly am. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your exiled power, your raw essence, uncensored by social performance. You are not whole without it. You are not safe without it. You are not you without it. So stop moralizing your instincts. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop negotiating with parts of yourself just to remain digestible to others. Instead, turn inward. Ask, what in me have I mistaken for danger that might actually be my freedom? Because the darkness you fear isn't a monster. It's a mirror, and it's waiting for you to look. What if you never needed to be perfect? What if you didn't have to be useful to be loved? What if your presence alone was enough? Who would you be without this fear of being too much or not enough? That version of you, the one who doesn't explain themselves to be understood, doesn't shrink to be accepted, doesn't disappear to keep the peace. They're not a fantasy. They're already in you, buried, breathing, waiting. Not for the world to change, not for the right people to show up, but for you to stop abandoning yourself in the name of being chosen. The ache you feel, it's not a wound, it's a signal. A sacred tension between the life you've tolerated and the life that wants to emerge the moment you stop lying to yourself. And maybe that starts here. Not with a grand gesture, not with a transformation, but with something small, quiet, symbolic, a refusal, a truth spoken out loud, a pause before the automatic yes, a moment of presence when you would have normally disappeared. That's how it begins, not as fire, but as friction, between who you were taught to be and who you're here to become. So here's your invitation. Choose yourself, once, out loud, on purpose. Let that choice be the first crack in the mask. Let it echo. Let it disturb. And if this spoke to something you've buried, some truth you're ready to remember, don't walk away in silence. Let it move you. Let it mark you. Let it begin something. Comment below. What part of yourself are you reclaiming, starting now?